I remember the first time I found out my dad was a Pearl Harbor survivor. It was 1971, about 30 years after the attack. I was 11 years old when my dad brought me to my first Pearl Harbor Survivors Association meeting in Detroit, Michigan. As a child, I didn't have any interest in history up to that point, but being surrounded by dozens of men that fought in a war of such magnitude, I couldn't help but gain as much information from them as a fifth grader could. My dad was born Andrew DeRiga in 1916 in Detroit, Michigan, and lived in a small house with his parents and 5 siblings. He spent his younger years helping to support his family, but in early 1940, at the older age of 23, he decided to join the Navy. During the attack on Pearl Harbor, my dad served aboard the USS Medusa, a fleet repair ship that was assigned to the Asiatic Pacific Theater during World War II, and earned 1 battle star for her service. On the morning of December 7th, 1941, on his way back to the Medusa after transporting crew members to nearby Ford Island, he spotted a periscope from a Japanese sub. He was one of the first men to notice the danger that was approaching, and because there was no radio on the dinghy, my dad was not able to warn the commanders of the Medusa of the imminent danger. By the time he hauled his tail back to his ship, everyone was well aware of what was happening. Out of 484 total men on board that day, all were ordered to safety below deck to get prepared to repair the damaged fleet. But 21 of those enlisted men were ordered to man the 3-inch guns. My dad was one of those men. Without hesitation, he aimed the gun at incoming Zeros that were strafing at all the Navy ships. He remembered that there wasn't time to think. You just did what needed to get done. As Commander A.E. Schrader stated, and I quote, "There was not the slightest bit of protection for gun crews or control party on the ship, yet there was not the faintest trace of hesitation on the part of anyone to expose himself." My heart sunk when my dad told me this, that he was so close to death. I was too wrapped up in myself to really appreciate and understand the significance of what he and so many friends and shipmates endured, that they did this for family and nation. If something happened differently that day, I wouldn't be here today. Because of that, I appreciate every day and everything I have. My dad was awarded the World War II Victory, American Theater Campaign, American Defense Service, and Asiatic Pacific Campaign medals, and the Army Good Conduct Medal for service in a combat zone. During my 8th grade year, he visited my class on December 7th to give his account of that day in the hopes that the students learned something from it, enough so that they wouldn't repeat it. There were many tears shed that day. As time went on, I didn't have much hope that anyone would remember the events of such an important day. But I'm still friends with many of them, and to this day they remember that speech and can't understand why so many people are against the military and anyone trying to protect us. As hard as it is to be without my dad, I'm so glad he helped define who we are as Americans, that he and so many others fought to protect. I attended the 50th anniversary of Pearl Harbor in Honolulu in my dad's honor. I will never forget seeing a sealed box with a bottle of scotch inside and a tontine plaque that said that this bottle of scotch was to be drunk by the last 4 remaining survivors. Unfortunately, that day is coming too soon. On November 28th, 1989, my dad's last day here, with paramedics at his side, my neighbor came over and wanted to take me to her house. I didn't want to leave my dad's side, but she thought it was best for me. Because of that, I never got to tell him how proud I was of him. I'm so proud of you, Daddy.